Hey everyone, it's me again. Um, Today I want to share my testimony of my emotionally abusive relationship and how I was freed and liberated through that, and how my faith in God really pulled me through that time. So, first, I guess I'll start at the beginning of the relationship. When I was 21, I had my own apartment. My daughter was nearly 4 years old. I was working full time, barely making ends meet. I was very stressed, very lonely. I wasn't a believer in Christ yet. I was living a very promiscuous lifestyle, had a lot of shame, and a lot of loneliness. I really wanted a serious relationship. I wanted a partner in my life to share my life with. Um, and I was very desperate for that. So I met this man, and he is about 6 years older than me. Um, Things moved very quickly in the relationship. Um, Even from the very beginning, there was a lot of red flags that I ignored. He was cheating on me in the very beginning of the relationship. Of course, he didn't admit it, even when I found messages and all sorts of things. He always had an excuse. And of course, I wanted to believe him, so I did. Not really truly inside, but I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to give him the benefit of the doubt. And it really started a mess with me believing in myself. My perception. I felt like I couldn't trust my perception. He kept telling me I was paranoid and insecure, and I was making things up in my head. So I started to feel like I was crazy. And I started to rely on him for like pretty much everything. Within about a year into the relationship, I moved in with him. So I no longer had my own place. I was living under his house, under his roof, and under his rules. He would say things to me like, this is my house, you're sleeping in my bed. So, therefore, I had to have sex with him whenever he wanted. There was a lot of sexual exploitation and abuse. He would tell me I had to pay the rent. Very degrading. And I went along with it. I honestly didn't even feel like I was worthy to be in that relationship with him. I had no self-esteem. I was a single mom. And he had a house, he had property. Like, I felt like he was just better than me. So I put up with a lot of stuff in that relationship that I would never put up with now, being a believer. Um, but a couple of really amazing things came out of that situation, because God is just so good, and He blesses us, and He uses even the worst situations to build us up. So this man I was with, he grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and it was actually the Jehovah's Witnesses that came to the house and got me into reading a Bible, and talked to me about Christianity. And I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, and I don't agree with a lot of their beliefs in the way that they do things, but I do have a lot of respect for them. They have a lot of courage, to go door to door, and it was them who led me to being a believer. And God uses all of us, and it's just amazing. So yeah, I became a believer in 2012, I think. I became a Christian. I just studied the Bible at home. I never even set foot in a church until like 2017. So I was a believer for 5 years before I went to church. But I studied the Bible a lot. Like, I underlined and highlighted things, and I did a lot of Bible study. And I really fell in love with the way Jesus was, and his example, and how he was a healer. I didn't have that kind of experience growing up. I had like one religious person in my family, and they were very fire and brimstone, we'll just say. I wasn't really taught the love part of Jesus and the relationship with Jesus. And even as I was studying my Bible, I didn't really necessarily have much of a relationship with Jesus at first. You know, I did a lot of praying, but I didn't have the Holy Spirit, and being in this emotionally abusive relationship kept me down, you know. So I wasn't even really able to feel the Holy Spirit yet. And that was the year I decided, me and this man I was with decided we wanted to have a child together. So I got pregnant in 2012. I had to quit my job because I was so sick. I was so sick and I was so tired. I ended up having sciatic nerve issues. It was a very rough pregnancy. And yeah, I had to quit my job because I couldn't even keep food down. I was so sick. So it was about that time where I didn't have a job, I didn't have a savings anymore, my car ended up breaking down, so I didn't have my own vehicle. The control and abuse escalated from there. Every little thing I did was nitpicked. I couldn't mop the floor because it didn't get the floors clean enough. He made me get down on my hands and knees with a rag and a bucket and do it that way. Like, I would be like, just a small example, like I'd be baking a cake and he'd be like, oh, you put too much sugar in that, and he would dump it out and he'd make me start over. That's a very small example, but it was just a lot of those things. Every little thing I did was nitpick. I started to feel about this big. So about 3 to 4 weeks after my daughter was born, I actually had a home birth with her, with a midwife. It was really beautiful. About 3 to 4 weeks after she was born, he forced himself on me and raped me. And it was the one time I said no. So the other times he talked me into it. I didn't even know that it was sexual abuse, but it is, you know, anytime they try to coerce or like talk you into it, that is a form of sexual abuse. But this time there was no denying it. I clearly said no. I was crying, I was in pain, and he did it anyway. And after he walked out, it was never talked about again. He never talked. I just pretended like it never happened. I buried it, and I think I started to get very depressed after that. I lost a lot of weight. I was down to 97 pounds. I have a picture right here. You can see my bones sticking out of my back. See me now. I got a little more weight on me now. I'm a lot happier. But yeah, things got really bad. I got really depressed. I wanted to die. I contemplated suicide. Of course, you know, I never even got close to doing that because I had two beautiful children and I could never leave. But, you know, I felt like it. I felt like I was dying inside. I had no glow, you know, I felt so dead inside. And, I kept studying my Bible and praying to God. I didn't even know I was being abused. I just thought I was the problem, and he would always tell me that. I would be crying and he would come in and he would be like, why are you crying? You have it so good up here. Everything's so great in your life. You're obviously mentally ill. And he even tried to get me to go on disability because he told me that I was mentally ill from when I got stabbed and I was messed up, you know. And I really started to believe that. And it was about in 2015, my brother bought me a PlayStation 4. And I know, it's like, why are you... Yeah, I know, it seems like, why are you even telling me this? What does this have to do with anything? Well, I was very isolated when I was up there. I lived up on the mountain, and he always had excuses why people couldn't come over, and and why I couldn't go somewhere, and I had no car, and sometimes I would go like months without seeing anybody. And so when I got that PlayStation 4, I actually made some online friends that I would play video games with and talk to every day, and I started feeling happy again. You know, I had people to talk to. I had a shared hobby with people. That's why you'll see on my YouTube page that I have all these like these Rocket League videos I made, because I was really into that game at the time. I made some really great friends on there. But like meanwhile in the house, you know, he thought people were poisoning him, so he wouldn't let people come over. He's put like a board and like brackets in front of the doors at night, like barred us in. It got really out of control. He wouldn't let my brother come over anymore because he said he worked in a hospital and he didn't want us getting sick. And this was way before COVID or anything. So he was just always paranoid about that. Always paranoid about getting sick or people trying to do things to him. He even started, I would be like, "Hey, how's it going today? How are you feeling?" And he'd be like, "Why? Did you do something to me?" So the paranoia got out of control, and like living in that environment, it was so stressful, and I felt so trapped, you know. I had no income, I had no car. I had nothing. Like I didn't really know where I would go. I didn't have a lot of family support. So so yeah, I started talking. I made a really good friend on PlayStation who was also a Christian, and we talked a lot. And there was never anything inappropriate, you know, like it was all just a friendship, but it was a guy. You know, most people who play video games are guys. And the person, you know, my abuser got very jealous of that relationship, and he started to threaten to smash my PlayStation. He'd unplug it while I was playing. He'd try to give me a bedtime. And for once in that whole relationship, I started to like rebel a little bit and be like, "Hey, I'm in my 20s. Like, why do I have a bedtime? Like, this is ridiculous." I started to see the control for what it was, because for once there was something I really wanted to do that he wasn't allowing me to do, and I started to say no, and that's when, you know, he'd start throwing things around, threatening to smash things, and I really got to see him for who he really was, and it was right there in my face. It was obvious. There was no more denying that. So, um, let's see. April 1st, 2017. I woke up that morning after the night before we had had a huge fight. He threatened to smash my PlayStation. I started getting so depressed. Like I was just wasting away. Like 97 pounds just wasting away. I called my brother and I called my aunt. I had them on like a three-way call, and I said, "One of you needs to get me today, or I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I want to die. Like, somebody needs to get me out of here. I can't be here anymore." I was crying, and I had like a total breakdown. And my brother who lived like an hour and a half away, he came and got me. Came and got me and my older daughter. My younger daughter stayed with her father for that week that I was gone, because I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, I just need to get away. And of course, right before I left, my abuser was like, "Oh, let me give you some money for while you're gone." And he started being really nice. And it made me feel so guilty for leaving. I just remember driving away with my brother and like looking back and just bawling my eyes out. The whole first night being away, I cried so hard. Like, it was so hard to be away. But by the second day of being gone, I'm like, I thought to myself, I'm like, I can never go back to that again. I felt so free. So after feeling free for the first time in years, I did a little bit of research on the computer at my brother's about emotional abuse, and because I've been praying, like, I didn't know what was wrong in my relationship. I was just so blind. And when I read about emotional abuse, I was like, "Oh wow, this is everything that I've been going through these last 6 years," and it really clicked with me, and I realized I couldn't go back to that. Of course, you know, he was calling up all my family and friends, and talking to me and trying to get me to come back and buying me things and taking me out to dinner and doing all these things that he never did when we were together. And I think there was 2 times where I went back during that month. And the second time I felt absolutely sick with myself. Like I felt like I was going to throw up. Like I was like I just felt the toxicity. And so after staying with my brother for about a week, I had to be closer to my job because I was back to work at the same place I worked at before my pregnancy. And I moved in with my stepdad, my father figure, my mom's ex-husband, who is amazing and is a father to me, even though he doesn't have to be, you know. So I stayed there. There wasn't a lot of room there. There was one room that I could stay in, and it was a very small room, and it had a lot of like storage and stuff in it. So I was in there, you know, with my 2 kids. My younger one would be up at her dad's sometimes, and then be with me other times. But after he realized I was not going back, he started treating me very bad. And he wouldn't let me see my younger daughter. He wouldn't drop her off with me. And he would purposely get me upset on the phone. And then I, of course, because I'd want to see my daughter, I would get yelling and I would get mad, and he would be like, "See, you're too mentally unstable to take our daughter." And it was rough because I didn't have a car, you know, I didn't have a savings, and I was staying 15 minutes away from my work, but I just prayed my heart out, and I had good friends, people in my life who would bring me to work and bring me back, and it was very hard because I'm the kind of person who does not like to ask people for help. You know, I've been conditioned since childhood to feel like a burden, you know, so I had to really work through those issues, and I had to ask people for help and for rides, and no matter what, I always had a ride there. I always had a ride back. Like, God had my back. Like, and within 3 months, I had enough to get a car. I had been looking everywhere for a car. I was so discouraged. I ended up going to a redeemed auto place, and right above the sign, it said Jesus Saves right up there, and I was like, wow, because those people who own it are Christian. And it was just such a, I was like, oh wow, it's right in your face, like, wow, God answered my prayer, for sure. And, you know, it wasn't over yet. I had my car, but I still needed my own place. That summer, I started going to church. It was a church that I had gone to Sunday school at when I was a child. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, but my mom wanted to get rid of us on Sundays, so she'd bring us to Sunday school. But oh my goodness, these people at this church, they took me in, they loved me, they treated me like family. I feel like I'm gonna cry because it was just, they helped me so much, and I was having a really hard time finding a place. Like, nobody would rent to me because I didn't make a lot. I was a single mom, and it was so discouraging. And the only place I ended up being able to go was the trailer park where I grew up. And for a while, it was really bad. There was a lot of drugs and things in the trailer park, so I was really reluctant to move here. But I got talking to people, and I realized, like, things had changed a lot. A lot of those people had been kicked out, and it was a much better place to live now. So I ended up getting this place, and my landlords were also Christian. And it was $2,000 for me to move in. And I had the money all ready to pay and everything, and my church ended up covering the whole $2,000 for me to move in. They got me furniture, they helped me move it in, they threw a housewarming party for me and got me all my kitchen stuff. Like, everything was provided for me, and I was like, wow, God, like, I felt his presence so much. Like, everything I prayed for happened. sometimes I had to wait a little while, and oh, I had days where I was so discouraged and so down. I really had to lean on my faith a lot during that time because I had nothing when I left. I had nothing when I left this situation. And within 8 months, I had a place, I had a church family, I had a car, I had a savings, I had everything I needed. And I remember this one time I had this nice prayer spot when I was staying at my dad's down by the river. And I was like so discouraged, and I was like, God, please just give me some encouragement. I'm dying down here. I'm having such a hard time. And the sun came out from behind the clouds and was just like shining down on me in this beam of light. And I looked up over the mountain, and there was this big rainbow, and it hadn't even been raining. I was just like, God was speaking to me through his creation, and it was just so amazing. Just that whole time was so stressful, but now I look back on it and I'm like, wow, I can't believe how everything just worked out the way that it did. And to go even above and beyond that, even after I had all of that stuff, I was single for about 1.5 years. I didn't even so much as go on a date with a guy. I just wasn't interested in anybody. And then I started hanging out with the man that I'm with now. I'm getting married in a month, by the way, to a wonderful guy who treats me like a princess. Like, it's unbelievable. I didn't even know men like him existed. And I prayed so hard to have a man like him in my life. And he ended up he was living in the same trailer park as me. We met when we were little kids. We dated briefly when I was a teenager, and I'm going to actually do a whole other testimony video about that because things were really tough in the beginning. Like, there was a lot of things going on. He was struggling with his own problems as well. So the fact that I tried to rent so many other places. I tried to go so many other places to live, and none of those worked out. And I really believe it was because I was meant to be with him. And, I had to be in this place to be with him. And I really love where I am. I do. I love my neighbors. I love the town that I'm living in. I'm just truly happy. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm just glowing. I'm so happy. I never imagined my life could be like this. Like, those 6 years living up there on that mountain with my abuser were just, I can't even explain. Like, it was misery. It was misery. And God freed me from all of that. Like, once I had faith, I knew I would be okay, and there were definitely days where I had my doubts because, things are really hard, and I have 2 kids that I'm like, I need to be a good mom. I need to make sure they have everything that they need, and everything's been provided for me. Even through my abuse, since day one, I've always had a roof over my head. I've always had food. I've always had some good people in my life. Like, no matter what, no matter how hard, like, even when I got stabbed, like, everything worked out, you know what I mean? I'm still here. God has carried me through everything, and he continues to carry me through everything. I had to go through a custody battle with my younger daughter, and 3 nights a week she's with her dad. That's really hard. That's one thing I really struggle with. I cry almost every time she gets picked up. But she's also with me like 4 days a week, and I no longer have to speak to him anymore because I have this thing through the court where we have somebody else to do the pickup and drop-offs, so I don't have to deal with any of his manipulation or abuse, because it was tough in the beginning. Like, he would accuse me of not feeding our daughter, and like, it was just, he would told me he was weighing her before and after and she got back, and taking notes, and it was out of control. It was out of control, and and I'm free from that. I haven't even had to speak to him in almost 2 years, like, and yeah, and I'm getting married next month. This is so, I'm actually supposed to be making the invitations right now, so I'm gonna get doing that. But I really wanted to share this testimony. I honestly had to re-record this a few times because my storage on my phone keeps getting full in the middle, and I've been pretty frustrated. But nothing was going to stop me from making this video today and putting this message out there. God is good, and He's here for you. He's listening to you. Ask and you shall receive, because my life has, it's became so beautiful. It's became more beautiful than I could even have imagined. God gave me even more than what I asked for, and in His own time. So never lose hope, never lose faith. God is listening. He's planning something even better for you than what you have planned for yourself. Because, we can only see so far ahead, but He can see way far ahead, and He knows what we need more than we know. So I just want everyone to know not to lose. I just don't want anyone to lose faith, You have to be patient. When things come from God, sometimes you have to wait a little bit. But it's from Him when you have to wait. And when you do receive those blessings, you just appreciate it so much more, When I got a washer and dryer, I cried the first time I did laundry in my house because I was just so grateful. Just a little thing like being able to do laundry in my own home was like, it was huge, I appreciate everything in my life now because I know what it's like to have nothing. So, I mean, of course I have my days where I'm ungrateful and I complain, and like none of us deserve God's mercy, but He gives it to us because we're His children and He loves us. And I guess that's just what I wanted to share. I want everyone to have hope and faith. Everything's gonna be all right because we have God on our side. So, what God has blessed, no man can curse. So, I just wanted to share that with everybody, and God bless everybody, and I appreciate everyone who watches and likes and comments on my videos and subscribes. Thank you, and God bless you all. Have a nice day. Bye.